sanji chodan soji chonam la pardo dane jamso che dage jinso jibe sanam che rolai benjira sanje robar sho sanje chodan soji chonam la chancho par Nane jamsu chi dagi jinsu jibe sanam chi rola penchir sanje robar shu sanje chudan suji chonam la chanchu par Nane jamsu chi dagi jinsu jibe sanam chi Rolai Benchira Sanjin Robar Sho Semjin Tamji Dewa Dan Devi Jodan Dembar Churji Dongara Dan Dongara Ji Jodan Rawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Dam Hendra War Churji Nyerin Chadan Ta Charve Tanyom Chembol Nebar Churji Semjin Tamjin Dewat Devi Jodan Dembar Churji Dongara Dan Dongara Ji Jodan Trawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Tam Mindra War Churji Nyerin Chadan Ta Charve Tanyom Chembola Nebar Churji Semjin Tamji Dewa Devi Jodan Dongara Dan Dongara Ji Jodan Trawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Tam Mindra War Churji Nyerin Chadan Ta Charve Tanyom Chembola Nebar Churji Chomden de jambe yang lai chan cai lo kange lo dren dim ye dren dra nye tara nam da ram sar ve chi nye ten kun chi jin si chi ni chi to gar le bam zen Kanda si be tsun rar ma ri mun tamo dung ra chi sir ve dro tso kun la pu chi tar zi yin la zhu ju yang den su. Zhu dar che zhu nyu mo nye long le chi cha zhu zhu zi chi ma ri mun sir dung ra nyu gu chi nye chun zi ra zhen. Dene tajin sachu tarsun yun dene luso gyarse tuyu ko chura chudan chuni jent dalu mun seren jambe yang lai du tse den chu je chara ve sere che dalu temo memba rapsa Den chu shung lu to pa ye lo zhi bo be nang wa tsar do sor. La perfection de sagesse, ineffable, inconcevable et inexprimable, de la nature de l'espace, sans naissance, sans cessation, le domaine de la sagesse primordiale, samvite et individuelle. Hommage à vous, mère des vainqueurs du passé, présent et futur. Hommage à la glorieuse perfection de sagesse. Ainsi ai-je entendu en un temps le glorieux séjourner au pic des vautours à Rajgriha en compagnie d'une grande assemblée de moines et d'une grande assemblée de...
Sorry, guys. At that time, the Glorious One abided evenly in the samadhi of the aspects of phenomena called appearance of the profound. Also at that time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, beholding the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, observed that even the five aggregates are empty of substance. Then, by the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva: How should a sorrow? All the Buddhas who abide in the three times by relying too on the perfection of wisdom have fully awakened into the unsurpassable, true and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom is the mantra of great insight, the mantra of the unsurpassable, the mantra peering with the peerless. the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering. Because it does not deceive, it should be known to be true. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is stated, Teata Om Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhi Soho. Shariputra, in that way, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the glorious one arose from that samadhi and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Well done, son of the lineage, it is like that. Son of the lineage, it is like that. Just as you have taught it, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced. Even the Tathagatas admire it. After the glorious one had spoken, the venerable son of Sharadvati, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, and all of those surrounding, and the entire world with its gods, humans, demigods, and Gandharvas in admiration praised the words of the glorious one. Heata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. This morning, I gave commentary on matter is emptiness, emptiness is matter, emptiness is not other than matter, matter is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, a perception, conditioning, and consciousness are empty. Here, we're focusing a great deal on matter, but the same is also true for Vedana, a feeling, samcha, a perception or identification, samskara, conditioning phenomena, conditioning powers, mental factors, among other, and consciousness, the 6 or 8 consciousnesses. These are likewise emptiness, free of essential nature, of substance. This brings us to the next part. To conclude this first part, the important thing is to see the relationship between emptiness and dependent arising. Of course, emptiness is not a kind of entity in and of itself, a substance. This is the same is true for dependent arising. Seeing emptiness is seeing the absence of substantiality, but it is also not finding nothing or non-existence. It is also conditioned existence dependent arising, seeing that nothing occurs independently on its own. This is also emptiness. This brings us to the next part. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are emptiness. From here, this concerns the path of exercising. Without characteristic, not produced, not ceased, stainless, not free of stain, diminished, unfulfilled. This part is sometimes designated as the eightfold depth. Earlier we saw the fourfold depth. The second part is sometimes designated as the eightfold depth. There are 8. There are 1, emptiness; 2, without characteristic; 3, not produced; 4, not ceased; 5, stainless; 6, not free of stain; 7, undiminished; 8, unfilled. Those are the 8 depths, or the eightfold profundities, we could also say. So these indications that phenomena are emptiness, what this implies, the fact that the 5 aggregates and all phenomena are empty of essence. This means all phenomena of the universe are emptiness. They are emptiness. This means that, this is what we saw earlier, they are empty of svabhava shunya. They do not have any nature or being in and of themselves. They are without characteristics, in the sense that they do not have the characteristics of their own entity or being in and of themselves. They are not established as they appear. They do not have characteristics that are substantially established. What we call production in general, or birth or production, there are different translations. This is the fact that something emerges, something that did not exist previously is born or manifests. This is birth or production. Cessation is the non-existence of something that existed previously. It's something that comes to cease, that ceases. What we call birth and death, or cessation, conventionally exist, but do not have any being in and of themselves. Through analysis, we cannot discover a being in and of themselves. Phenomena are not ultimately produced or destroyed or obliterated. They do not cease ultimately. Those who have followed teachings on the Madhyamaka will have seen the critique of production. You can remember this, things being produced from themselves, from another, from both, from nothing. When we talk about birth or production, the fact that something comes into existence that did not exist before, then there is the question of whether this thing comes into existence from nothing. That's certainly not the case. We cannot observe this. If things appeared based on nothing, then things would arrive without causes and conditions coming together. If the emergence of a thing depends on a cause, then it's necessary to know if the thing that emerges is the same as its cause, or is it something separate and distinct. If the effect is the same thing as the cause, then they are not two entities, they are one and the same entity. If they are one and the same entity, then why would the effect have to come to be? Because it is already in the cause. This contradicts the emergence, contradicts birth. If it's the same thing as the cause, it can't be the same thing. If they are distinct, separate, if the cause and the effect are two separate entities that have nothing to do with each other, they're not the same thing, but two distinct entities, then there's no reason behind it. Then anything could produce anything. Then why doesn't darkness produce light? Why doesn't light produce darkness? They're distinct, they're separate. If cause and effect are one, this doesn't work. If they're distinct and separate, then anything could produce anything. In the case of two entities that are completely distinct. So something produced by something else cannot be found. We cannot find birth in terms of something substantial that comes into being based on itself, based on something else, based on nothing. Of course, there's a fourth possibility based on both, on itself and something else. And two non-workable possibilities don't make a possibility. So we don't find birth. If there is no birth, then how can there be cessation? Cessation only exists in dependence with birth. If we can't find that something comes into being and exists in and of itself, then we also cannot speak of something that comes to an end. In this sense, through analysis, we cannot ultimately find production or cessation. So then, ultimately, all phenomena are not produced and not ceased. Because all phenomena are emptiness, they are not intrinsically stained by samsara. And also because nirvana, and also so samsara being conditioned existence, phenomena that are emptiness, our last analysis shows that this is their reality. This reality is not the conditions of our distraction, these adventitious stains, adventitious veils cannot stain this emptiness. The other idea would be to think that reality is not samsara, it's nirvana that's real. But nirvana also is free of being in and of itself. So it is also not free of stain. It's also not a state that's free of stain. If stainlessness substantially existed, then how could illusion be produced? Since both are emptiness, then neither one is substantial. We cannot find intrinsic substantial stain or stainlessness. Because ultimately, neither samsara nor nirvana substantially exists. Phenomena are neither diminished by flaws nor filled with qualities. In other words, what is emptiness is not something that is lessened by confusion, or in the case of enlightenment, is not perfected in a certain way. It is free of all substantial reality. We could read one of the commentaries here, an Indian commentary that says, in the beginning of this sentence, it reads, therefore, Shariputra. So we address Shariputra. Then there is this notion, listen well and without distraction. Thus, all phenomena are emptiness. This means, exactly as we mentioned earlier concerning the 5 aggregates, it is important to know that all phenomena, whether they are of the world or beyond the world, in illusion or in absence of illusion, the 6 sources of perception up to knowledge of all aspects, the omniscience of a Buddha, are emptiness. Without characteristics. It means just like space that is free of characteristics. In the same way, phenomena are free of characteristics, the characteristic of affliction, confusion, as well as the characteristic of purity or absence of confusion. Not produced, not ceased. The term production, produced, or birthed here, designates what has come to be that did not previously exist, and then cessation or ceased, we can understand, meaning something that has ceased to be that previously existed. Because emptiness is unobservable, it is not something that was previously produced, and because it was not produced previously, it also does not cease later. Concerning stainless or not free of stain, stain refers to the activity of consciousness that apprehends objects. Because the activity itself transcends consciousness, it is free of stain. Concerning stainlessness, not being stainless, because stains do not have any existence, the absence of stain is also lacking. Concerning undiminished and unfulfilled. What is diminished, we can understand to be sentient beings, and by what it is filled, well, we can understand to be Buddhas. This does not mean that because the Buddhas are sentient beings cannot be found. We cannot find the diminished or the filled. That's a commentary from Tanamitra. There's another way of looking at this. So this concerns the first two of the 8 points. All phenomena are emptiness. Without any independent substance, they don't exist on their own without depending on anything else. All phenomena are emptiness, and that they are also without characteristic, because likewise we do not find the marks or signs. No phenomenon possesses the signs of existence in and of itself inherently. And the following 6 depths or profundities can be explained in connection with Buddha nature, ultimate reality, Dharmadhatu, the emptiness of all phenomena. There's another approach here, which comes close to the teachings of the Great Vehicle that talk about the Tathagata Garbha. Here, what we call Buddha nature, Dharmadhatu, is and ultimate emptiness are identical. They're synonyms. Buddha nature, that is emptiness, this emptiness is without beginning, without end. It abides without stain in the mind of all sentient beings that wander in samsara, in the various destinies of samsara, as humans, animals, pretas, in the hells, etc. The Buddha nature abides within them, free of all stain. For this reason, this reality of the minds of all beings as being emptiness, Buddha nature, because it is naturally and always pure, it is not something that comes to be purified during or through the process that leads to enlightenment or through attaining enlightenment. There is no change to this reality. Being inconceivable and inexpressible beyond all possibilities of being limited, is unlimited. It never decreases in size, even in order to be present within the smallest of sentient beings, nor does it grow when the Dharmakaya, the unlimited Dharmakaya of a Buddha is actualized. Dharmadhatu also describes as being without production and without cessation. It does not have afflictions like phenomena of samsara. Because it is naturally pure, it cannot be purified or soiled, stained by anything. And furthermore, given that it is emptiness, it is not established as being substantially established as pure or impure. This is not something, quality, this reality of emptiness is not something that decreases due to afflictions, nor does it increase, or nor is it improved by purification. This is the meaning that other commentaries give concerning undiminished and unfulfilled. In the Mahayana Utantra Sastra, it says there is nothing to remove, nothing to add. Reality must be seen correctly. When reality is seen, we are liberated. The element of Tathagata, in other words, Buddha nature, is free of the adventitious, that is, by nature, divisible. But it is not free of insurpassable qualities whose nature is indivisibility. That's another reading of this passage. So then these 8 depths or profundities are also associated with the perfection of wisdom. The essential meaning of the perfection of wisdom is sometimes also there's this term, designation, the 3 doors of liberation, which are the samadhi of emptiness, samadhi without marks or signs, and the samadhi without wishes. The first 2 phenomena are emptiness and without characteristic, refer to the samadhi of emptiness. In other words, no substantial reality is observed concerning reality. The following parts: refutation of birth or production, stainless. This refers to the samadhi without signs. And the last two, undiminished, unfilled, refers to samadhi without wishes. Vi moksha mokam, namtar gosum, shunyata, animita, or without signs, apranita, or without wishes. Tongpani, sema nepa, sema nepa. Those are the Tibetan terms for information. Anyone's listening who speaks Tibetan in English, I'm sorry, my accent is terrible. The Tibetan commentaries give a bit of clarification. Certain Mahayana sutras, for example, Kashapa Parivarta says, phenomena are not made into emptiness by emptiness. They are themselves emptiness. Phenomena are not made to be free of signs. They are themselves free of signs. They are not made to be empty of wishes. They are themselves without wishes. The knowledge of this, Kashapa, Buddha says, is the middle way. It is understanding, it is the correct understanding of phenomena. In another text, it is said, beings who wander in samsara do so because they do not understand emptiness, peace, and non-production. The compassionate one who guides them shows them the means to access through, couldn't entirely hear what he said, the theme of reasoning or through 100 reasonings, to be clarified. Emptiness refers to the absence of an entity that truly exists independently to phenomena. Peace refers to the absence of signs, which is in fact the absence of a true substantial cause for phenomena. The absence of wishes designates that there is not a truly existing effect. Due to the fact that they are not aware of this, that they are unaware of the doors to liberation, they wander in samsara through conceptions of me and mind, and in their engagement in a variety of actions. Due to this, they transmigrate, being born and dying ceaselessly in the ocean of samsara. The Buddha teaches them out of his compassion and shows them through various methods, reasonings, and leads them to adopt the three doors to liberation. In the Bodhisattva Bhumi, there's an explanation given concerning the three doors of liberation, which is the following. The samadhi of emptiness is the state of mind of a bodhisattva who sees that all is of the nature of the inexpressible. Samadhi without wishes is a state of mind that is free of expectations and wishes, that sees that the numerous signs are created by the afflictions and that come from a mistaken conception concerning what is in its true nature inexpressible. The samadhi of the absence of signs is the state of mind that dissipates all signs, all conceptual elaborations concerning the inexpressible nature. We see here that in the expression emptiness, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, shows that phenomena are free of characteristics, specific characteristics, and general characteristics. That make up inherent or substantial nature. And this understanding is presented by the door to liberation, that is emptiness, that dissipates all grasping of inherent existence of phenomena without birth, or not produced, not ceased, stainless, not free of stain. This concerns the door to liberation of the absence of signs that refutes the existence of causes, substantial causes. So here, there is not a relationship of cause and effect of something that has a substantial being in and of itself that produces a substantial effect. We cannot find this. There's no substantial cause or substantial effect or substantial process that exists in and of itself that occurs either concerning confusion, samsara, or enlightenment. For example, we can say that we are in samsara, but samsara was never truly produced because we cannot find it. We cannot show its real production. It's just illusion. It only exists in terms of grasping. It doesn't exist in and of itself. The same is true for enlightenment. It is not something that is substantially established in any way. This is the door to liberation without wishes. That shows that there is no truly existing effect. In other words, there's nothing to desire in terms of the path of liberation. In other words, abandoning flaws and acquiring qualities. These flaws and qualities do not have any being in and of themselves. They are undiminished and unfilled. Ultimate reality is actualized, but there's nothing to wish for because there's nothing substantial, nothing to attain. Here we could say that this teaching on emptiness, the absence of wishes and the absence of signs, is an antidote, a remedy for our view, our conduct, and result. There's no attachment to have in terms of view. This is true, this is false. We cannot find any kind of description that is substantial. And in terms of conduct or cause, there's no substantiality. And in terms of fruit, there's also nothing substantial to obtain. Do you have questions? Let's leave some space for what? Into the microphone. Please speak into the microphone. Yes, please. I'm gonna start with a question that has been waiting since this morning. Hello, I have a question for you, Trinlay Rinpoche. I am a chronic pain patient. I do the Heart Sutra every morning, like Karmapa told me a few years ago. How do I best deal with the pain from a Buddhist point of view? I am well cared for medically and therapeutically. I hope that this question also helps others dealing with pain. Thanks so much, and the best for you and all sentient beings. Thank you for the question. Conventionally, relatively, we experience pain, and this is due to the fact that we appropriate these 5 aggregates that manifest through our confusion and actions. They're the fruit of our past actions. This is something that limits us, that is a source of discomfort and unhappiness. How can we deal with or face pain? There are different ways to think about pain. We can reject pain, hate pain, be upset with pain, and this risks increasing our pain. Not only do we have pain, but on top of that, then we also have a lot of discontent. So the first step is to try to find meaning in this pain and understanding that is the fruit, the result of past acts, the fruit of our ignorance. And in order to help us surpass this pain, there are practices such as on the basis of cultivating love and compassion, thinking about other people who experience the same pain that we experience, or others who experience much greater pain than us. Since we experience pain, we can understand this and become aware of the pain that other beings experience, and then give rise to true compassion. If this compassion can arise, then our attachment, our discontent connected to our own pain can be lessened. Due to the fact that this attachment is lessened, then the experience of pain can also be appeased to a certain extent. Also, giving meaning in this way, taking advantage of our pain. In fact, we can allow for pain to become a source of merit for ourselves, that we can wish to experience, to carry in our pain, the pain of all beings, that we wish that no beings will have to ever experience the pain that I am experiencing. May I, through this pain, take on the pain of all beings. That's also another very strong way to accumulate very powerful positive karma through the wish, through wishes based on love and compassion for other beings. Those are methods that are accessible to all of us, doesn't require understanding emptiness or having acquired any particular degree of meditative stability. For those of us who are looking at these questions of emptiness, we can see that pain is there, and we can try to find where it is. Does it have a being in and of itself? When I grasp pain, when it arises and I grasp it, I give it greater existence in a way. If I look, I try to seek out the inherent substantial nature of the pain, and I don't find it, this may also help to have a little bit of distance or perspective on the pain. It can help to dissipate this pain. But to really be able to truly distance ourselves from it, it is necessary to have a certain degree of mental stability. If we practice shamatha, the more important, powerful our shamatha practice is, then through the force of mental calm that we abide in, the mental absorption that we can establish ourselves in, when we are in this calm, then we will not experience physical pain. This calm, if we truly access it, then in this calm we can escape pain. And if this calm is connected with the understanding of emptiness or vipassana, then we can entirely simply not feel that pain because it has no true existence. But all of that's a bit difficult for beginners if we're starting out. It's important to use the tools that we have, taking care of ourselves to reduce our pain. The idea here is not to think that we have to suffer the pain. That's not the idea. If there are ways to diminish it through medical care, then it's positive to use them, and then to apply the first reflections that I shared with you, thinking about the suffering of all sentient beings, and developing love and compassion towards all sentient beings, wishing that in the pain that I experience, the pain of all the worlds can be dissipated, the pain that all beings experience similar to mine can be dissipated. That's a very effective method. And also through this, we accumulate extremely powerful positive. Okay. I have 2 questions. I'll ask one question from this morning first. The question I had from this morning, I'll read it. If we go beyond all reification, how do we continue to exchange with others like us? It sounds like it's meant to say, without reifying. It's a bit like in a dream. You can be in a dream and be distracted in the dream, that you're not aware that it's a dream. You believe everything that you see in the dream. Or you can be in a dream and be lucid concerning the fact that it's a dream, and you can interact with the dream without the dream limiting you. It's not because we contemplate the ultimate that we cease to be able to communicate. Look at the Buddha, quite the opposite. Because he accessed the ultimate, he accessed a way of communicating that was much faster. In the same way that if we dream and we have a lucid dream, we can transform our dream. We're not limited by our belief, by our grasping. Our capacities for intelligence, communication, all of this is exponentially increased. It's not as though reification is the means for action. Reification limits our capacity for action. Beyond all reification is, on the contrary, much greater intelligence, much greater discernment, much greater capacity, ability. Thank you. Okay, so the second question. You said Buddha nature is not free of insurpassable qualities. Its nature is indivisibility. If I followed correctly, indivisible means one. Rinpoche says, it's not the meaning here. We're not talking about one or a substance that's found. So if we go to the final analysis of all phenomena, we won't find their being in and of itself. This absence of essential being is not something that we can grasp or divide. What we grasp is something constructed, so it has parts, etc. It's not to reify that there is a kind of substantial, a one substance behind all this. When we say that it is endowed with all qualities, it means that the possibility for all qualities is there. Our true reality is emptiness, but if it is not actualized, then confusion is also possible. This ultimate is not being in and of itself, not diminished, not filled, undiminished, unfilled. So here, indivisibility doesn't mean being in and of itself. No. Simply that, upon analysis, indivisible isn't in the sense that we found something course, we can understand indivisibility in terms of one, a substance that can't be divided any further. But it's not in that sense here. It's expressed in the sense that observing the emptiness of phenomena is not reifying anything. This reality of emptiness, or the finality of the analysis, is not something that can be analyzed anymore because there's nothing that is grasped. And the final analysis, the reality of all phenomena, we call it Dharma Dhatu, the emptiness of all phenomena. But of course, if we reify it and thinking that it's something, then we're not in the mind of the teaching, but rather our own mind of grasping, reifying a substance. And that then we haven't listened that emptiness is matter. We thought that emptiness is something else. Thank you, Rinpoche. I have 2 questions this morning. When we talked about the sons and daughters, you said that for Buddhism in this society, sons and daughters are equal, but my knowledge is that the monks' vows and nuns' vows are not, the amount is not the same. So then where's equality? I think it's necessary to distinguish the view of the teaching, ultimately, and then the history of Buddhism in various cultures and societies. The Buddha succeeded in allowing, in making it possible for a community of nuns to be created on the condition, let's say he had to make some compromises with the society that he was in. So he created a certain number of rules so that it was envisionable for that society. But these rules are not absolute rules. They were adapted for the time and the place. Okay, thank you. Second question. In the text, there's a word, imperception, which I understand to mean clear recognition. But she says the term samchina means becoming aware of something, to grasp a particular characteristic. So for you to understand, imagine that you're walking down a noisy street, there's bicycles, horns honking, and in all of this noise, somebody shouts out your name. And among all of this sense information, you grasp the name. You identify this sound. Oh, someone's calling me. That's the case of samcha. But samcha is also conceptions, mental representations, grasping the characteristics, the particular characteristic. As I said, translating is in a certain way betraying. There's never a word that is exactly the same that corresponds. I mean, maybe there are some words that are the same, water, fire, but when we get into more subtle notions, certain times cultures have constructed their cultures and representations, their languages differently. Of course, when Latin languages have similar cultures, similar histories, then there's more similarities. It can be easier to translate. So, with what we're studying, is it possible to connect this to the Vedanta Veda? I am, but without the attributes. In other words, free of grasping, identification, and remaining with the I am that is unborn. That's just a question out of curiosity. Rinpoche says, if I say I am, there's grasping. The person replies, but I am unborn. And Rinpoche says, it's still grasping, there's still representation. What is the unborn? It's like reifying emptiness. Saying it is the unborn. What does that mean exactly? If it's unborn, if it's emptiness, there's nothing to grasp. We won't find anything to grasp. If we grasp anything at all, then we are in confusion. If we think, oh, it's Buddha nature, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, it's my mind, these are all representations. And they include grasping. Rinpoche, in the 8, what do you call them? Not free of stain, unfilled. Why not say with stains or empty? Well, there's a few different things. There's stainless, not free of stain, then undiminished and unfilled. So we're following the text a bit here. He's reading the Tibetan more than I can follow. Trima mepa is that we cannot find stain. This refers to obscurations, veils, all that is adventitious. And in emptiness, we do not find this. But is emptiness then established as something that is free of stain? Emptiness being emptiness, there is nothing to establish in and of itself. So it's also not free of stain. It's not stained because it's emptiness, and it's not pure either because it's emptiness. Then the two others, undiminished, unfilled, it's not because we are confused that emptiness is less emptiness, and it's not because we're enlightened that emptiness becomes more emptiness or is improved in some way. Reality is always free of being in and of itself at every moment. There's nothing to change. There's nothing to perfect in emptiness. We perfect wisdom, which is the understanding of emptiness. The object of wisdom is emptiness, but ultimately, emptiness and wisdom are indivisible. But on a relative level, for us who are still in confusion, there's a process by which we go from confusion to the absence of confusion. And that's what's important. I'd like to come back concerning what we talked about yesterday in relation to love and compassion. I'm wondering, what does this resemble? What does this look like? Sincere love, without attachment or preoccupation in In, for example, a couple, there's always often a feeling of something missing that leads us towards an outer, something outer, and there's a feeling of attraction and then desire, and then it stops because it doesn't work, and then we go looking again. So I'm wondering, when the illusion of lack and need ceases, can we still fall in love in terms of being in a couple, being in a romantic relationship? I can't really, I feel like if attachment ceases, then we have this sincere wish to help others. And I just wonder, do romantic relationships exist, or having realized emptiness? Hmm. Well, if I had to say it another way, more precisely, I guess I wonder, I feel like my way of perceiving love in terms of a romantic relationship is completely mixed up with attachment. And how could I imagine it without attachment and desire for me? What would that be like? Of course, the essential point that I wanted to underline in terms of talking about Mitri is this point that it's important not to confuse it with desire attachment. In other words, universal love that we cultivate already, what we try to cultivate is not to feel too close or too attached to other beings. It's simply being in a peaceful relationship and wishing for others' benefit and well-being, to not envision our relationship to others in terms of what they can offer me, but in terms of what I can offer them. How can I help? It's about finding our own happiness in others' happiness, really wishing for others to be happy as much as we would want it for ourselves. As much as we wish to be happy, in the same way, wishing for others to be happy. Wishing for the well-being, happiness that the other one experiences, pleasure, that's what we call kindness. Of course, in a romantic relationship or a familial relationship, desire might predominate, but not always. This attitude of wanting our family to be happy, wanting our partner to be happy, wanting our kids to be happy, our parents to be happy, all of that is quite possible. In general, so long as we haven't realized emptiness, desire will manifest. Attraction, attachment, those are things that manifest. But if there is self-centeredness, then there's a lot of suffering that comes with it, if it's for me. But if we have an attitude that is more focused on Mitri, this benevolence, a kind of friendship. One translation for Mitri is friendship, kind friendship. We can have this attitude, and this can greatly improve how we interact with others. But it's difficult, desire, afflictions, etc., because we have such tendency to have them, it's difficult for them to disappear just due to our will. It's a question of practice and training. The more we train in emptiness, the more that we can have space from these afflictions and transform them. an enlightened being is someone who has completely dissipated confusion. How can they be certain that confusion will not return? Because once they've seen it, they cannot unsee it. Once they've seen emptiness, once they've tasted the freedom of this, they'll not go back to grasping, they won't fall back into confusion. But so long as we have not reached the first bodhisattva level, so long as we only have an image or a reference, not direct perception or direct knowledge, then it's always possible to fall back into grasping because we're only very slightly familiarized with emptiness. For now, it's learned wisdom. We have to reflect on it. We have to cultivate it. And for the moment, and even then, it'll just be a reflection. The Tibetan term is suk nyen, reflection, a semblance of wisdom. It does resemble it, but it's not yet the real thing. It's a reflection of discernment. So at this level, then yes, we can fall back into confusion. The question asker says that means that we've never been free of confusion. If we had been, then we would have stayed. Rinpoche says, yes, that means that since beginningless time, we have never known or recognized the reality of our mind. We've always fallen into the habit of grasping. The substantialist grasping of I, of duality. So, in fact, ultimately, this has never really happened, but it's like a dream. When a dream occurs, where does it occur? What time does it happen? The time and place are part of our illusion. Hello, Rinpoche. Here's a question from someone online who asks, it's still not clear for me how to integrate these teachings into my daily practice. Can you give some advice so that this doesn't remain simply intellectual? That's a vast topic. Here we're giving commentary on the text. As I said, the important thing is to see the target that is the substantial grasping at I, that through practice, what we seek to do is to dissipate the afflictions, particularly dissipate our ignorance and confusion. That's the goal of practice. Sometimes we get lost in all kinds of activity or pilgrimage. We do prostrations, we recite texts, we do lots of things. But all of that is done with the goal of wisdom. That's the most important thing, perfection of wisdom. This perfection of wisdom must rely on mental calm, being able to cultivate samadhi, exercising the practice of shamatha. For a beginner, I recommend studying the Dharma more, receiving clear instructions on meditation practice, and then on this basis to apply them. Of course, it's still intellectual practice on a certain level. The text itself is not, doesn't directly give instructions on how to practice shamatha or exercises to do to cultivate love and compassion. how should we carry out the analysis of the emptiness of self and other. It's a very short text that implies all of that, but it doesn't give any details. So in daily life, we can use this text as a support in terms of the explanations that we've seen, particularly relating to emptiness. And contemplating, when we read this text, the explanations we've received, and then to engage in other practices like the practice of shamatha. Hello, Rinpoche. To keep going with the question that was asked, I would like to share an answer that you yourself gave 10 years ago. Something that you shared on the Heart Sutra. You started with something that seems perhaps a bit out of left field. You said, my motivation before starting anything, before starting any practice, is to look at my secret compass every morning, and I check to see if it's turned towards kindness. Is that still true? Rinpoche says, yes. In general, concretely, for example, the Heart Sutra, all of these subjects are vast subjects that can seem inaccessible to us due to their subtlety. But kindness, compassion, these are things that we understand. We know what they are, we experience them, we have experienced them. By relying on these qualities and trying to cultivate this attitude toward all sentient beings, from the smallest animal to the most powerful human beings and the most unfortunate, we try to have an attitude of kindness and compassion for all beings. It's really the basis for engagement in the great vehicle, the vehicle of Bodhisattva. In order to know if I'm orienting myself correctly in life, we have to know what motivates us. What motivates me in a certain action? If I'm doing something, why am I doing it? It's always important to look at what I'm looking for, what motivates me. Often, so it's necessary to carry out this introspection, and if we see that it's envy, desire, unkindness, or jealousy, it's motivating me, then we're probably starting an action that is harmful for us. If, on the contrary, I'm undertaking something with the goal of helping, of bringing benefit to others, if that's what motivates us, then it's an action that I can rely on. If in life we don't know exactly what direction to go in, here's an image that I gave once, I remember, of this. Yeah, I remember now having this kind of compass. If we're lost in the mountains, and we have a compass, then we can find the path to go back home. And in the same way, here we are, a bit lost in samsara, in conditioned existence. Appearances, everything that appears to me is very attractive, frightening. Afflictions are constantly arising. I could go in a lot of directions. What's the right direction to go so that I don't lose sight of progressing towards enlightenment? This is the direction of altruism. So long as I'm cultivating an attitude of kindness and compassion towards other beings, and I'm undertaking actions that are in accordance with this, then at least I know I can be reassured that I'm not going to produce unnecessary suffering for myself or others, and I will get closer to the path of enlightenment. That was a kind of advice. Of course, the most important thing, wisdom and to support the practices of bodhisattvas, meditation, etc. But even if all of that is difficult, at least to rely on love and compassion. They're very powerful harmony. There is a story of a mother and her daughter who were carried away by a current, and the mother had only one thought, which was to save her daughter. And the daughter's only thought was to save her mother. And unfortunately, both were drowned, but they drowned with this kind intention. And this intention allowed them to each access divine rebirth. Just this one moment thought. I have a second question concerning today's subject. In the same statement you made, you said many things about self, and particularly I noted self is not even empty. It doesn't exist at all. It is nothing. Ego simply does not exist. It is pure imagination. It's not a form nor a phenomenon. It is nothing. It's just an imputation. Can you confirm this? In general, there are two levels of understanding. There's a level of understanding, if I may, of the common vehicle of Buddhism, the vehicle of the Shravakas, which focuses on seeing that self does not exist. If it doesn't exist, it is nothing. We'll find an absence of self. But this is not what the middle path adheres to, the middle way. Ultimately, if we consider the absence of existence of self to be the complete annihilation of what we are, if we think of it as nothing, then why do we have all this experience? So it's not nothing in the sense of nothingness. The thing that we grasp as self, the entity that is singular, permanent, this thing is non-existent. We won't find it. We cannot find it. So it was a simple negation, if I may. We won't find it. But from there, to go from there and say, I am nothing, that's a different step. From the point of view of the great vehicle, ultimately, there is no self, but there is also no non-self. There is emptiness. Self cannot be found, but non-self can also not be found. Because non-self is also emptiness. There's a subtlety of understanding. There's a difference. But we can start, as I said, here yesterday, I think, the important thing is to find the target. When we say there's no self, it's about this grasping at I that I have when I'm afraid, when I'm happy, when someone insults me. I, this thought, I, very firm. Where is it? We have to somehow manage to let go of this grasping. And the related afflictions as well. If we do, then they will be appeased, they'll disappear. I'd like a clarification concerning the example of the two women who drowned. They had divine rebirth. Is that the same thing as the world of the gods? Because we say in the end that the world of the gods is not the best form of rebirth to attain enlightenment. Or does this refer to something else? Rinpoche says, it is one of the worlds of the gods. I'm not sure which one in the story, if it's clarified, specified. The world of the gods, it's true, in the text, it's not considered the most beneficial, the most positive, but it is considered that in the world of the gods, they do receive the Buddha's teaching that there are individuals who practice and progress along the path. There are certain divine existences where there's very strong attachment to existence and to the pleasures that one experiences there. And so they do not have the diligence to apply themselves to practice. And due to this attachment to calm and pleasure that one experiences, then the positive force that brought us there is exhausted. And once it is exhausted, then we fall back into lower rebirths and the positive opportunity escapes us. This is because there's a strong tendency for distraction. We can even see it in the human world. When we have extremely favorable conditions, positive conditions, then we're so distracted. Consumption takes time, spending money takes time, going out to parties takes time, going to see our friends takes so much time. We don't have time to practice. In the divine world, in some of these divine worlds, it's also connected with certain inner states of calm and serenity. The divine world includes the divine destinies of the desire realm, where we are. We're in the desire realm, not the divine part. There's a perception of an outer world that's very basic, that we are attached to. There are divine forms here, but there are also the true, more subtle divine result of access to various states of calm. If we have, if we're a good meditator in terms of shamatha and we attain various dhyanas, if we achieve a certain dhyana, we can, at the moment of death, enter the divine world, the divine realm that corresponds with this dhyana. Then there's an experience of great, great bliss, great calm. There are also divine worlds that are completely interior, that have no outer perception, but there is attachment to this very subtle state of calm. But there's no discernment, no wisdom. We don't understand emptiness. There's simply grasping this state. And then we stay there until the power of this is exhausted, and then we fall back into the desire realm. We're not free from samsara. This is why in Buddhism, even more than meditation, wisdom is important. We see it in the Buddha's life. After having accepted the request to teach. The Buddha was thinking of ancient meditation masters that he had known. Rudraka and others. He saw that, in fact, through his clairvoyance, he saw that they had died. He thought of them first because they had such stability of mind that if they had understood wisdom, they could have attained enlightenment very quickly. But because they did not have access to wisdom, they lost the opportunity. They missed out on it. And even though they could stay in that stability for a very long time, they were not free from samsara. Rimpoche, long life gods, they call them. I wanted to come back to previous point, wishing to help others. When we're with the parent, it wasn't clear to me whether they were talking about themselves as the parent or in the present of a parent and child in any case. And the child has great difficulty with drugs and addiction, and the parent has suffered with them. What can we do? Rinpoche says, accomplish wishes. Does anyone remember what I explained to you? So a wish is something where we say, I would like for such a thing to happen. But just a wish is not nourished by merit. But when the wish is nourished by a positive action that we have accomplished, then it is accompanied by the possibility of it being accomplished due to the power of merit. This is why it's important to make wishes, but not to make selfish wishes or self-centered wishes. If we make self-centered wishes, then this just reinforces our confusion. But if we make altruistic wishes, then this reinforces going in a positive direction and increases our ability to help other beings. So in Buddhism, we really underline this possibility of sharing merit, the possibility of giving or dedicating merit. If other people do not practice, but if we practice for them and we dedicate merit to them, it can be spiritual practice, it could be an act of charity, giving, any positive act. Make wishes and dedicate. So whether it is for someone who is living, someone who has died, in Buddhism, there are things that we can do for deceased parents. There are many acts of charity, many prayers that we can carry out that are dedicated for the benefit of these parents or people in general. Can you talk to us about joy? When we talk about equanimity and altruism, there's often loving kindness and compassion, but we don't talk about joy. But that's the third limitless. So what's the true nature of this equanimous joy? Well, we'd have to give a full presentation of the four immeasurables. There's much to say. It's very detailed. In the context of a question and answer, I can't give a full teaching on the subject, but to very briefly sum things up, Joy is the opposite of jealousy. And joy concerns others' happiness. The happiness and virtue and merit of others. Often when we see others' merit, we feel jealousy, but joy is when we see qualities for others and we rejoice in it. We rejoice in their happiness, etc. That's the practice of joy. And this eliminates jealousy. In brief, this also supports compassion. Compassion is what we experience when we see others suffering, not their well-being. I thank you all for your attention. See you tomorrow morning.
Nam di tamche siba nye toni nye pe ranam pamche che ga na che bala chuba ye sibe so len ro wa sho chang chup sem cho rimbo che ma che banam che juru che ba nyam ba me ba tang kong do pe wa sho. Il y a quelqu'un qui m'a laissé un...
Someone left me a message asking for bodhisattva vows. I don't know if we can do that this time. We have many things to go over in the teaching. For those who have already taken bodhisattva vows, we could you can renew them yourselves. You can carry out the 7-branch practice, then take bodhisattva vows and renew them in this way. We would be rejoiced to retake our bodhisattva vows, which haven't been broken but damaged. So if you feel that you've damaged them, then I recommend that you carry out the practice of the 35 Buddhas. You can also simply the 35 Buddhas is very good. Otherwise, there's Vajrasattva. And then take the vows again with the 7-branch practice that we find. You can first recite the 35 Buddha Sutra, and then you recite the 7-branch practice as we find it in the King of Wishing Prayer at the beginning. You don't have to recite all of the wishes, but in the beginning you'll find the 7-branch practice, and then you express the bodhisattva vows as they are written in the preliminary practice. Thank you.